Yeah, welcome back. It's the College Football Corner late on a Friday. Friday Night Lights is over. Just came back from Stebbins stomping the Pirates of West Carrollton to 47-0. And we're going to get on here and talk about tomorrow's games in college football, big-time college football. Myself and Randy Skaggs, real quickly, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell for notifications, give us a subscribe, and a Facebook, like us, and join the conversation if you feel the need to do so. We are sponsored by Dubby. If you want 10% off some tasty products that'll make you stay awake and without the jitters, I've been doing it for a couple weeks now, and the stuff works. It's right there at the bottom, W.GG, and then FV Network, Fletcher Entertainment Network, is the code for 10% off. And let us know if you do that. Take a picture, send it to us, and we'll pound W Energy to put it on the W site so they know. So with all that done, you know, Randy, the W stuff got in, so I'm going to get that stuff to you this weekend. We got your own shaker and some powder and other stuff like that. So, and we got a hat to give away. Well, maybe I'll have somebody grab me that so I can show it to you. So, Randy, what's your Friday night been like so far?
Oh, it's just been pretty eventful. Have all four grandboys here, so that always keeps things hopping.
Are they all passed out by now, or are they just another part of the house?
No.
Not even close, huh?
Yeah, we're trying to get to quiet time here. So
there you go. All right, let's talk a little bit about last week. A little bit. I thought your Bama boys looked pretty nice.
Yeah, they did. I was actually shocked at how well that they played against Georgia, and a typical Georgia game. Not a great first half for them, and once again, Kirby Smart makes the adjustments and makes a heck of a game out of it. But I'll tell you, Ty Simpson has been a real pleasant surprise for Alabama. He has been pretty much phenomenal. This, even in that first Florida State game, you couldn't even put that on him. He's done really well. But we look at the games last week. I don't think we missed all of them. I think you did get the Illinois game right. So. But other than that, I think we missed a bunch of them. Well, we had four of the top 8 lose last week. So that's college football that we've been talking about. We never know what's going to happen from one week to the next.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. And tomorrow probably isn't going to be any different. There's going to be some things out there that you think are going to one way and they're going to go another. But yeah, I was happy. The Bama goes on the road, wins in Georgia, tough environment. Ohio State goes on the road for the first time in a big game, and they go to Dub out west, travel across the country. That was kind of a lot of the, talking heads, as we say. We're talking about that somewhat being an upset alert kind of a deal, because Washington's offense has been pretty impressive thus far, although they haven't really played big competition. But I was very impressed with Ohio State's defense all year long. They've been pretty good, and they were pretty amazing. Some guys are really starting to make names for themselves. Caden Curry for 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. I mean, that's an incredible game right there. And he was in the backfield all day. Him and Caden McDonald. That's a 1-2 punch that was just getting it done. And what can you say about Arvell Reese? He is really trying to do a nice linebacker for them. I shudder to think that they're almost, if not completely, just as good as what left to go to the NFL last year. And that's nothing bad about those guys. But they got some studs. So it'll be an interesting season. And offense as usual, no mistakes, keep the ball. They did have a fumble on a punt return, but it didn't cost them anything. Quarterback, I wouldn't say manages the game. I think they're just, letting him ease into the role. He's got a nice pass. He's decisive. The ball looks good coming out of his hands. I do question, only because I just haven't seen really nice deep ball passes, or some of the ones he's thrown little underthrown, but it's not like they're getting picked off or anything. So sometimes I think, hey, save the good stuff for November. That's when you want to be playing your best football. So you don't have to be clicking on all cylinders right now. So happy with the Buckeyes. They play Minnesota tomorrow at 7:30 at the Shoe. Should be a win, and then I think they go on the road for 2 in a row, Illinois and Wisconsin. So, and of course tomorrow, let's talk about Bama again. Big game to a certain degree. How would you classify this game based on what happened last year? Because typically you're not really people know about that, just you. Not really talking about a Bambi Vanderbilt game as one that's on the calendar. But what they've done the last year or so is kind of pepped up Vandy's, pep a little bit. But I do think that Bama's looking good, and I think they're going to be ready for this game.
Yeah, they should be ready for this game, especially after what happened last year. Big upset at Vandy, and that kind of put Vandy on the map. This year they're 5-0, a very impressive win. Whereas South Carolina, they literally just blew them out.
Yep.
But now they got to come to Alabama and play, and their quarterback he can't shut up. He just talks and talks and talks and talks. So
yep.
And that's a good thing to a degree. But I think you can always cross that line. Hopefully Alabama's got enough bulletin board material and enough fight in them to come up and show up, much like they did against Georgia game. Hopefully they don't have any kind of letdown, because this is not the Vanderbilt that we've seen in the past. They are much improved. They're really really doing well, but they're. Vandy's coming into a stretch now too, where they're going to have some really big challenges. So tomorrow, you never know, because nobody's seen that coming last year either. So they do have a running quarterback. Running quarterbacks give Alabama fits. So that you never know what'll happen there. But they're at home. You'd like to think that they would be okay. It's certainly not a given.
Yeah, I think last year, Caleb DeBoer's first year, Saban hangover for the fans, I would say, not so much the team. Team's a little different with guys leaving after Saban left, and it's just kind of a who's bought in, who's completely bought into the DeBoer system and all this. And then, you got the big games that you're marked on there. You're not even thinking about Vandy. And I'm not saying they overlooked them. I'm just saying, literally, I don't think anybody outside of Vanderbilt knew who Diego Pavia was, other than New Mexico, I think is where he came from, until that game. That game put him on the map and and woke up everybody to, hey, what's going on here? I think it's a different year. They do look nice. That's probably one of the best teams we'll ever see. Or I should say we have seen for sure on Vanderbilt, and how long they can hold this and keep it going with that coach. He's a nice coach. Who knows? And it's just good for the SEC when they got another team that's relevant. So it's a ranked game for Bama, so that's going to be a nice win, if they win, which I think they will. I think Bama's a better team this year. Yeah, Florida State came out. That was a heck of a game, a heck of an environment, and it was what it was. But they've played great ball since then, and they played really nice ball last week. No, it's not 50-0, but you find ways to win. You're cutting out games, and this is at home, and I just feel like, yes, this is a game. It's going to be Bama's going to find a way to win. I don't know how they're going to win, whether it's a field goal or by 24 points. Don't know. But I think Bama wins the game. And that's all that really matters. Win the game and move on at this point,
Yeah, and I think, after what we've seen that first week, and then we had talked about it, we don't really know, what we had that first week, kind of exciting. And, and literally Alabama got pushed all over the field. So, you're thinking, man, Florida State looked great. And going to that, and and then we have, as time has moved on and weeks moved on, then Florida State got beat last week, and along with a few other teams, other top teams. So we're really getting into where are these teams at and what do they have, because now we're into week 6.
Yep.
And so now it's like, okay, this ain't no off to a bad start or anything like that. Now we're really finding out what we have, and big question marks are popping up. And we talked about Penn State. Oregon came to town, and Oregon's a really good team.
Yep.
But look at listen, I'm going back a week ago.
Sure.
We look at that. Look at that game. Here's Penn State at home at night with a whiteout, and they get beat by Oregon. Kind of typical of what we had talked about when we were talking about Penn State getting over that hump, and that was certainly an opportunity for them to do so. And I really, as I watched that game unfold towards the end, I was really kind of questioning what the heck is Penn State doing here. I thought that the way that they hit things, they should have turned. They got to turn that guy loose from the get go. The quarterback for
Aller, yeah.
um, you know, it's just you can't let. I don't care how good a team is when you are a top four team. You don't let somebody come into your house at night in a whiteout and take a game away from you. Is Oregon that strong? I don't know. We'll find out. As things move forward, but maybe they are. But that was a real tough loss for Penn State given the environment.
Yeah, it was an overtime game, but 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, that game was over, and then all of a sudden, this happens, and Penn State finds a way to get to overtime. It wasn't close, and throughout the game, it was a close game, but yet it just felt like Oregon was kind of driving the bus a little bit.
Right.
They're not the team they were last year, but at the same time, they just seemed to be ahead of it. Had a little more jump in their step. And the thing with Penn State is they got so many guys that came back from last year. They got two great running backs. I don't know why they aren't mowing people over in the run game to set up the passing game. It just seems weird, and it makes me think. Is it the coaching? I ain't cracking on Franklin. I mean, he's been there a long time, but man, they just can't get these big games. They can, it's just, and they haven't looked good all year. They haven't really played. They've won games big, but it's against lesser competition. But against the tougher teams, they struggled. And I don't know. It's hard to say what it is, other than when all things are equal, maybe it's the play calling and the coaching, or a little bit of both. Because I think they're a much too talented team, and it kind of shows to me a little bit how much they relied on that tight end that went to the NFL. That guy he ran the ball, he caught the ball, he threw the ball, and he's gone. And so Penn State, I don't know. I think they got maybe one. They got Ohio State on the road, and I think they got another game, that's kind of big. Other than that, they're going to be looking up at Indiana real soon as far as the pecking order in the Big Ten. I think right now they are looking up at them because Penn State or Indiana's rolling. I don't know who they can beat, but boy, they're rolling. And if you got them on the schedule, you better come to play because it seems like they will. Nice team.
Tomorrow Indiana has who do they have tomorrow? Is it Illinois? Somebody has a big game.
Let me see here. I will see if they're.
I was just looking at that earlier.
IU. Are they off? Let me go to the. I don't see them standings. We get to the Big Ten. Get their.
It was.
I see Illinois, but I don't see.
Maybe it's Illinois. I'm thinking. Who's Illinois have?
Oh, hold on! You got me in the wrong screen. Indiana tomorrow's.
No, Illinois has Purdue.
They're off tomorrow. They play Oregon a week from tomorrow.
Okay,
and that's at Oregon.
I'm a week off. That's what I was thinking. I thought they had somebody big this week, but I'm actually a week off. So they have a bye this week. So.
And I tell you what, that'll be – I hope that game tonight. Illinois got Purdue. Purdue pushed them to overtime, I think, or something last year. It's at Purdue, but if Illinois can't put Purdue away, then Illinois does have the problems we think they do, then why Indiana just creamed them up, and that is on defense because Duke ran all over them, but they won that game. So if Illinois, can't get it done against Purdue, no offense to Purdue, but they're definitely not an Illinois team. Then it's just they got offense, but they don't have good defense. It seems like so.
I can't see that happen. We have.
It's hard to say that, yeah.
Right. I was going to jump. Talk about one of the other teams. Florida State. It looked so great that first week. Lose less. They very well could lose 2 in a row. They have Miami. They are at home. They have Miami tomorrow, so that's a really big test for Florida State. But they could very well be looking at 2 losses in a row after that fantastic start that they had. So that's another big one.
There's a few things we're going to learn tomorrow. That's one, and because of what Virginia did to Florida State, they're on the road at Louisville. And Louisville's a decent team. It's in their own backyard. If Virginia goes in there and takes care of business, then you wonder, okay, how good is Virginia? Because they were talking last week that, hey, Florida State don't look over Virginia. And I was like, whatever. And boy, was I wrong.
We missed almost every game that we picked last week.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Wait things went. So, yeah. So I mean that's going to be a big test with with Miami going to Florida State. Who do you have in that game?
Oh boy, that's a tough one because I don't feel great about either team. Miami I think is not the Miami is back. Miami, they're playing good, but I know what Carson Beck can do. It just and it really it's going to be. I don't know. Are we looking at another wide right? Wide right four. I don't know. I mean, because historically these teams played down to the wire for the most part in the
Right.
'80s, '90s, Bobby Bowden and all that. So I feel like if it was in Miami, I don't think I'd give Florida State much of a chance to win. I'm not saying get blown out, but if anybody blows anybody out, I would say Miami would be blowing out. I can't see Florida State handling this team. But whether they win at home, we got a raucous environment, man. They get rolling, and they need, they look so good against Alabama,
Yeah.
and then for them to get pushed around like they did by Virginia, it just makes you want. And everybody's saying, "Oh, Miami is so big up front." I'm like, we'll see, So
Yeah.
it's going to be one to watch. I think that's the night game, and Ohio State is a night game. I'm not that anybody's going to be watching that one against Minnesota, but it is at night. And the Texas A&M and Mississippi State. And Mississippi State's not playing bad at all. They go to A&M, and A&M's. I'm thinking they're going to roll that game. But yeah, at Florida State, Miami, that's the one a lot of people will be talking about. And it's almost it's so hard to pick, but I would take the home team. I mean, why not? You get some points at home, but I don't feel great about it. I really don't. I feel great about picking either one.
I'm gonna kind of go with Miami. A lot of experience that Carson Beck brings with that offense, and he has played well in big moments.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll give a little bit of edge to Miami, but I think it's probably one of those games that could very well come down to the wire.
Yeah.
So I mean that'll be a dandy.
And is that the game they said that Miami does not have a kicker on their roster because they both got hurt or something? If it's not them, it's somebody else. Somebody they said I heard today doesn't have a kicker, but they may not need a kicker.
Well, a kicker. Okay. Well, you gotta have a kicker.
Well, yeah. So you may not need one, but yeah.
I'm an Alabama fan. I went through about 7 years of not having a kicker. Oh my gosh, it was horrible.
No doubt.
Yeah. So then you have, what's the other one that I was looking at was Texas and Florida.
Oh, yes. I definitely want to talk about that one. I know who I'm picking in that one.
Who are you picking?
I'm picking Florida.
Picking Florida to beat Texas.
I think Florida's back's against the wall. I think they're a better team than the way they've played. And I think Texas hasn't really shown anybody other than Sam Houston and other teams like that they can score points. And if they can get after, I think it's going to be swamp chomp. They're going to get after them. I think it's going to be tough sledding for the Longhorns and the swamp. I really do.
Not so fast, my friend. Texas has an excellent defense. I mean, they really do. They probably have, Texas and Ohio State probably have two of the best defenses in the country. I'm going to say. I mean, Texas played a heck of a game in the Ohio State matchup, defensively, and I think that. I agree with you that Florida's back is definitely against the wall, and they are at home. But that Texas defense is pretty solid. I think they're for real. Can Texas score the points that they're going to need to win? I mean, you ain't going to beat nobody if you don't score. That would be the big question. I pretty much agree with you on that. But I think that if Florida's going to have a tough time with that Texas defense, I truly believe that they are a very solid, good unit. So I can see a pretty close game coming down. Maybe we find out a little bit about Florida being if they're back against the wall, or maybe we find out about Texas. Hey, we've turned the corner and moving forward. So that's another real interesting game.
Yeah, I think the key to the game, from my standpoint, of picking Florida, is how good Florida defense plays. If they can, confuse Arch, rattle him, get after him, and contain him. I know he's a runner, but I don't think he's like Michael Vick runner. He's big, so he run over some people, but I don't think he's going to outrun anybody to the edge. So
he's pretty fast.
Yeah, but I mean, like Michael Vick fast, where he's a game changer. I mean, so.
Yeah, you're going way back.
Well, I know. I'm just, okay, Lamar Jackson, not that far back. But anyways,
There we go there.
yeah, but I feel like if their defense can play and if it's a low scoring game, I don't mean like 3-3. I just mean, it's in the 20 to 20 or less for each team. I think that's the game Florida wants. If it's a shootout, then that means Texas is rolling, and it's probably going to favor them. If they're rolling on offense, and then they're the type of team I think that can get a lead and then pin your ears back, and you're done. So it's got to be a game almost like what Ohio State played, where they got to confuse them on offense, keep them out of the end zone, and then they got to get something going on offense. The main thing is their backs are against the wall. I don't know if Napier gets fired after this week or not, but if Texas goes in there and bounces them out of the swamp, I don't know. That could be ugly. But I'm not calling for a fight. But they got to win this game. Texas is kind of the other thing is Texas is it's Arch Manning's first road SEC game. So he hadn't played on the road since Ohio State.
Right. So that's I agree with you that pretty much with everything you said about Florida State, but they do need a low scoring game. I don't know that either offense can get it, how well they would do to get into a shootout. But, I can see, Florida's defense has been okay. They haven't really been getting blown out. And then, like I said, Texas defense is very good. So they can only hope for, exactly what you mentioned. So
got a Mark Salyer, which I think is a friend of yours, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yep. He's asking you what your thoughts are on Ole Miss and asking me if I think Oregon is legit. You go first.
Well, I think Ole Miss is for real. They've been, Lane Kiffin has done a heck of a job. I've gone full circle with Lane Kiffin when he was an Alabama offensive coordinator. I thought he did a great job, and then we had that big mess, when he left there at the end in 2015. But he has come on. He is definitely a great offensive mind. Ole Miss playing better and better defense each year that I've seen them. It seems like they improve a little bit. So, I definitely think that Ole Miss is a contender. They, of course, they got, some of the big boys coming up. A big win for them last week. I think that they'll definitely be there. Hopefully, I said last week that Ole Miss is the SEC's Penn State, hasn't quite got over the hump yet, but this could very well be their year that they can do that.
Yeah, I'm looking. I think they're off this week because I don't see them on the schedule. So I think I'm trying to have to look at. They might have a big game next week, and that's why they're off this week. But they got their Simmons.
Ole Miss has a bye. They're on a bye.
Okay, that's what I thought. Simmons is their quarterback. He's out. And this Trinidad Chambliss guy from Ferris State, which I know what Ferris State is. I lived in that state up north unfortunately for a while, and that's where Ferris State is. And this dude, nobody ever heard of until Lane pulls him out. This guy might just keep his job, is what they're saying. He is slinging the rock all over the place for Ole Miss. He's picked up the offense, and they're looking really good. So I know he asked me about Oregon, but I'll just chime in there and I'll say I think Ole Miss is seriously more legit now than they have been probably in 3 or 4 years. But we'll see. But that dude looks like he is everything and then some. And if he's playing like that, you got to keep him in, regardless of what's going on with Simmons. I think, but got to play the hot hand. Oregon being legit meaning, I guess, national championship, because last year they were certainly legit to win the Big Ten, and they went toe to toe with Ohio State out there and in Oregon, and was at Autzen Stadium, and that was a heck of a game right down to the wire. And then of course what happened in the Rose Bowl was just an annihilation, and that was just, it was what it was. You probably play that game 5 times, it wouldn't be that bad, but that day it was crazy.
It would be that bad. Under the circumstances, let's face it. If we go to that time, Ohio State, coming off that loss to Michigan.
Oh yeah.
Something clicked, something happened. They figured it out, and at that point, and you watch them play, and going past Oregon and moving forward. This is not the Ohio State team we've seen all year.
Oh yeah, total true.
That we heard about. and all that. So I mean, yeah, I'm only I'm just
Yeah.
saying there. But I agree with you. Oregon, I think Oregon is legit. They're going to be a contender. Are they? Will they be standing at the very end? They could very well be playing in the Big Ten championship.
I completely agree with that. I think Oregon and Ohio State are the two top teams in the Big Ten right now, and that's saying a lot. Indiana's going to find out what Oregon's about, next week, obviously. Ohio State won't play Oregon unless it's in the Big Ten championship and or somebody loses and it's in the CFP because they're not on their schedule this year like last year. So, Ohio State, it's hard to see them getting a loss. Granted, they got to go to Ann Arbor and win up there, which, for the fifth year in a row, I'm going to say it'll happen this time, but who knows? So those two teams, I think, are somewhat of a collision course. Indiana's going to have something to say about that, but they don't play Ohio State either. There's no rebound game from last year when Indiana came to the shoe this year. So, that game between Oregon is probably going to decide somewhat who Ohio State will probably play in the Big Ten Championship, barring a loss by Ohio State, which I don't think will happen. I don't think Penn State's going to get Ohio State in the shoe, and I don't think Michigan's going to get them, and blah, blah, blah. But is Oregon legit? Absolutely. I think Dan Lanning is a great coach. He's coming from the Kirby tree. He is a new, young, great coach that's out there. He's sitting pretty. If I was Oregon, and blank check, and I think that's what they gave him because they like him, and he's doing a great job out there. And they are, here comes those teams from the Pac-12, and right away Oregon is relevant, and USC's trying to be relevant, and Washington is trying to be relevant too. I don't know out of those two which one's going to beat each other to be relevant, and then UCLA is just a mess, unfortunately, and that stinks for them. And then,
I can't see anything coming out of the Pac-12 right now. Washington obviously might be the best bet, but I just don't see it. Oregon, definitely, legit with Oregon, and when Saban retired, I was like right away, man, get Dan Lanning.
Yeah. Well, and he didn't want it. He came right out and said, and you know what?
He was my pick, though.
I can't blame him for not wanting to follow Saban, regardless. But I guess he knew, hey, I got, Nike here just giving me money out the wazoo, so he's in a good place.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Money talks. But I think that he is that good of a coach. He was the guy that I would have liked to see him come,
Right. Good couple questions, Mark. And hey, let us know what you think, Mark, about Ole Miss and Oregon. If you have some thoughts on them. And I don't know if you're a fan of either one of them or you're a fan of somebody else, but good questions for sure.
Well, I know that he's an Ohio State fan. Now, when we were younger, we grew up together in the same neighborhood, and back in the day, he was an LSU fan. And, we used to go round and round, and I'm talking, oh man, back in the 70s. Early 80s, we used to go round and round because he was an LSU fan and I was an Alabama fan. I know he always liked Ohio State too, but yeah, we used to go round and round over the LSU Alabama thing. So I don't know if he's still following LSU like he did when he was younger or not. But if we could get Mark to chime in and tell us that.
He must have loved it when Tressel and the Buckeyes played LSU in the national championship in the BCS days. I sure didn't love it because Ohio State didn't win that one, but Beanie Wells had a nice stiff arm on one of their linebackers. That was pretty cool. But LSU, talk about a team that is, there's some teams that are underperforming. I think LSU is one of them based on what we thought we're going to get this year with these returning players. Penn State, LSU, Clemson. And is anybody underperforming more than Clemson based on what they thought they were going to be? And Mark says, go Bucks all the way. Good man. Good man. I like him. I think Mark is one of the smartest people that's ever chimed in on the show.
Oh my gosh, you gotta be so what I'm hearing is he turned tail on LSU, but I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah. Well, if Brian Kelly went to Alabama, you might do the same thing. I don't know.
Oh, man, yeah, that'd be hard to take right there. But,
yeah, no doubt. But yeah, yeah, those teams are underperforming, and it's like, Clemson's got to be the worst one. I mean, they say usually in the beginning of the year, there's a team in here that's not going to be in the top 25 at the end of the year, and then there's a team that's not that will be. It's a good chance Clemson's not going to be in the top 25 by the end of the year. I'm not saying it will happen, but they don't have anybody left on their schedule that's really going to pull the numbers up, I don't think. And I don't think they're going to the ACC championship game, but we'll see whether they're ranked or not. If they're ranked, it's probably because they're Clemson.
No, they're not. No. I mean, no, unless they can blow away Florida State, unless they can blow away Miami, which, I can't see that happen. I mean, I'm not looking at the schedule. I assume that they probably play either both or at least one of those teams.
Yeah, I have to look. I don't know. They play North Carolina tomorrow. They lose that one, and they might rip the paw off their helmet if they lose to UC to Florida.
They're not going to lose that game.
North Carolina, Boston College, SMU, Duke, Florida State at Clemson, Louisville, Furman, and then South Carolina. So they do have Florida State.
So they don't have Miami unless they made it to the ACC championship.
Yeah, which won't happen, I don't think, unless the ACC implodes.
So you could actually possibly see a rematch of the Miami Florida State game that we're going to see tomorrow.
Well, especially if Florida State wins. If they lose that, that's going to be tough because they will have lost to Virginia, and it depends on who else is. Yeah, but certainly if the Florida State wins it, then that could be a first of two. There's no doubt. So
yeah, like you said, we'll find out how good Virginia is. I mean, they still gotta get there, just like so that second spot depending on what happens tomorrow, that second spot in the ACC could be really up for grabs.
Yeah, I wonder. Louisville's got to be in play for that. Let me see who is what we got here. ACC. Louisville, they only play one game. And we're totally forgetting about Georgia Tech, and they're going to have something to say about that too. They're playing pretty good football. They beat Clemson, So Hurricanes that haven't played a conference game. If Hurricanes lose tomorrow, they're 0-1 in the conference.
Right,
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, poor old Clemson. with all the hype and all the early ratings and stuff, it just
There was people that picked him to win it all, and there was people that picked Klubnik to be a Heisman, and neither one of those are on the radar right now. It's the way it goes. But wins are more important than it. And that's one thing I want to talk about a little bit. You were mentioning the dude running his mouth for Vanderbilt. And I get it, though, but you and I being somewhat from the same era, there's a few years difference, but it's like, I was at the game tonight in high school, and it's a 10-yard pass out, and it's an overthrow, and the DB gets up and throws his arms like he made the best play in the world. He never touched the ball. It's like, act like you've been there before, get in the huddle, live to die another play, stop showboating, and keep your mouth shut and play football, man. I mean, all this mouthing off and stuff, it's just, it's just nuts. I don't like it either. I just play football and, win with dignity and lose with grace, and humility and, so.
Well, that's, that, unfortunately, us old school guys are,
dying off.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just it's hard to take, and it's hard to adjust. And I mean, I'm probably never going to adjust to it. It's like, you said it very well. Act like you've been there before. Show some respect to your opponent. All those kind of things.
Right.
And just the world we live in today. Everything that's acceptable is. Amazes me more and more every day, and that's across the board, not just football, but it keeps moving on. I mean, I've been driving a school bus for the last 3 years, and oh my gosh, I mean, times have certainly changed, but it's hard for me to adapt to that type of thing. The hoopla, getting up. Yeah, I can't stand it when I watch football, mostly college football, but even a little bit of NFL here recently. And they get a first down, they stand up and they're pointing, and I'm like, oh, okay,
right,
got a first down there, okay.
Yeah, first downs don't win, don't give you any points, but yeah, we're gonna in about 10 years, this show's gonna be called "Get Off My Lawn" instead of college football corner. But no, yeah, it's it used to be you do something like that, your coach pulls you out of the game and sit the bitch for the first quarter. You're never gonna do that again. And now it's like, let him. I'm like, man, that's
you see that, let him be himself. He's expressing himself.
Yeah.
Try to express myself when I was a kid, and that didn't work out very well.
Now, a good handful of them are millionaires, in college football. So that just makes it worse. So, but
you ain't a kid, and let's go back to the thing with Alabama and Ryan Williams. Talking about Ryan Williams, we may talk a little bit about this last week. I can't really remember, but the big drops, he had another one. Had that big drop against Georgia. I mean, got behind him wide open, hits him right in the hands. He dropped it. There was two other plays where they hit another receiver. He's right there. He doesn't block. He lets the guy run right past him. I almost believe that it was too much too soon for that guy. He was 17 years old last year.
Yeah.
He's 18 now. He's still very young. But he's getting $3-4 million, whatever it may be. And I think for a guy like that, you got to keep that work ethic. You got to keep that drive. And as soon as you let off the gas just a little bit, everybody else is going to pass you by.
Oh yeah.
That's just the way it is. It's always been that way.
Yep.
And I think that he definitely let his foot off the gas. Hey, I'm all this, I'm all that. I got this money, and once you do that, it's hard to get it back.
True.
I mean, all of a sudden you have to change everything that you do.
Yeah.
Change your work ethic, change your approach to the game, change all that. Hopefully he's got good enough people around him to adjust to that. But he literally went from probably one of the best receivers in the country to middle of the pack, not my opinion.
Yeah, he's got all the talent in the world. There's no doubt, but it's just it's not like last year so far. The first month, a little bit of the same with Jeremiah Smith. Most of his issues are they're rolling everything around him and having to get other people involved, and they're not passing as much with Sayin being first year starter and all that. Some people are like, oh, what about his Heisman campaign? I'm like, who cares? I mean, a good player is not worried about individual stats. That stuff comes. You want your team to win games and move on, and I think Jeremiah Smith's got a good head on his shoulders about that,
Well, Jeremiah Smith, they're still getting him the ball, and when he gets it, he's still electric. But
right.
He's still doing all the things he's supposed to do for his team.
Oh yeah, exactly.
He's blocking downfield. He's doing the things that he's supposed to do.
Yeah,
and that's the difference between those two guys right now. Of course, one's a little older, a little more mature. We'll give him that, but I don't think he's that much older than
maybe 1 year because he was a freshman too.
19 or something like that. I know he's not really one either.
Yeah,
Not like the quarterback from Vandy who's like 30.
48.
in his sixth year.
He was coaching last year, and now he's on the field.
Stetson Bennett, Carson Beck, the Diego guy from Vandy. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
If you're eligible and it's working for you, and especially nowadays, and you're making lots of money, why not?
Right.
So why not stick around for another year?
The thing about running quarterbacks, and I don't mean, the guys like Pavia and Haynes King, the guys that really throw their bodies into it. Last year during the national championship, Notre Dame got the ball first, and they went right down the field in about 12 plays, and a lot of them were Riley running the football at the middle of the quarterback. And, I'm watching this, and they were getting first down. They got in, they scored a touchdown. And it stinks I didn't want them to score but I literally said, You can't do that the whole game. They're not going to win this game if all they can do is run Riley, because he won't last. A quarterback, most 99% of quarterbacks can't do that the whole game. You got to have more than that, and they didn't. And the game flipped quickly to Ohio State, and that was the rest of it till the end. If Notre Dame had a couple touchdowns late to pull within 8, but it was over. And so Pavia, he's different, but can you go a whole season? Like Haynes King, great guy, man. He's always getting hurt because it's so hard to be that type of quarterback and make it last for a whole season. And I think that's what's going to be where they fall short, is with those running quarterbacks that are just laying it on the line. They're taking a pounding, and you got to have more than just that guy to get it done. I don't know if Vanderbilt does. I think Georgia Tech's a little more well-rounded of a team than Vandy is. That's ACC and SEC, but that's just my take on that. It's just really hard to do that when your quarterback's your best player and leading your team in rushing.
Well, you can get away with that more in college football than you ever will in the NFL.
Right. There's no doubt.
Because you don't have 11 guys out there that are top of the line guys. Most of those, even the very best of the schools, maybe have 4 or 5 guys at the most. Most of them like 3 or 4.
Yeah,
a big difference. So those running guys, that's why they can get away with that in college and put up the big numbers and get all the hoopla. But when you see those guys go to the NFL, very few of them, they got to find out they got to be able to throw too. It's great to be able to do it. Lamar Jackson. He can run, but he can also throw the ball very, very well. Josh Allen, guys like that. That's the only way you're going to survive moving past college football. So that's not the only place you're going to get away with that.
Yeah, all the linebackers in pro are 4-4, 4-3, 4-2. So the closing speed, when those guys run and get in the NFL, they're like, Johnny Manziel, was great in college. He was nothing in the NFL. He just looked like, I don't belong here at all. NIL could have. Yeah. The linemen were catching him.
The linemen in the NFL. Look at their times.
Yeah, big time.
They're running under 5-second 40-yard dashes.
Yeah.
You're going to get away from those guys.
So with Lamar Jackson, I remember thinking he ain't going to be able to do much in the NFL if he don't throw, and he did. Pick up his passing game, and he does throw a really nice. The ball looks different coming out of his hand. It is fast. It is, So it's like, for some reason they've got to the playoffs. They just can't get to the Super Bowl, and I don't know. I can say it's his fault or anything, because I definitely think he's played really well. It's just one of those things where he's got to get past KC, and now this year looks like he's got to get past maybe them, but more than likely the Buffalo, and Josh Allen.
Well,
tough sled. Every team's got studs. Like you said, there's no doubt.
Well, that's the way it is in the AFC. When you get into the NFL and that side of it, you got to get past one of those 2 teams. But
yeah.
So but I got what you're saying on the running back thing. That can only go. That's only going to go so far. And once again, I bring this up every single week, sometimes several times. Georgia and Kirby Smart, the quarterback can have a great first half against him. He's not going to have a great second half.
Right.
Just the adjustments that they make, they just shut things down. And going back that just real quick, I happen to think of something. The difference in that game. I don't know, did you watch the Alabama-Georgia game?
Oh, yeah.
So Alabama starts off 8 for 8 on third down. What better way to take the crowd out of it and, knock the other team down a notch than converting third down after third down after third down? The crowd's all fired up. We're going to get off the field. We're going off the field. Nope. We're going to get off the field. Nope. 8 in a row. That was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. They were clicking.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if we have any other big ones this week.
Yeah, let me see here. I got to get back to the schedule. I'm on the ACC. I thought there was at least one more. For the Virginia-Louisville, I think is a very interesting. I know Louisville's not ranked, but they're a good team. They're at home. Virginia, it's almost like now that they dismantled Florida State, let's see what they're all about, to see if it's something. if they're going to slide into the conversation. Big games. Yeah, Mississippi State and Texas A&M was another one where Mississippi State is one. They only got one loss, I think, and it was not by a whole lot. So, can they give Texas A&M a fight? I want to say no. That's at A&M. I give A&M the home field on that one, so I give them the win. But we'll see. Colorado's at TCU. I'll be honest with you. I think TCU is going to bounce them out of the stadium. I mean, Colorado is not good this year.
Well, you watch them. They have been getting off to a very good start. Most of the games that I've seen them play. I mean, they did that last week. They were playing. They jumped up. They were like 17-3 or something like that. It ended up being a pretty close game. They ended up losing, but it ended up being a pretty close game. It seems like that their defense is a little bit better than it was last year. Of course, it was atrocious last year, but their offense was very good. And now their offense seems to be pretty good. Not near what they had last year, but their defense is better. So, I haven't seen anybody blow them out. They've been able to hang in those games fairly close.
Yeah, I mean, they played Georgia Tech 27-20, lost, beat Delaware, big deal, 31-7. Houston, 36-20, that was a road game. Wyoming, they won, that was at home, 37-20. BYU, they lost. Then they were in Colorado, 24-21. That was a tough game.
Yeah.
And now, so TCU, and then after that's Iowa State, Utah. They got a tough Big 12 schedule. I mean,
they do.
It's going to be interesting to see if they can be relevant. In the Big 12. In the Big 12, like we've said this season, throw a dart. I have no idea who's going to win that. An interesting game is Iowa State, undefeated in the Big 12, coming to Cincinnati, Nippert Stadium. And Cincinnati's one loss was late interception driving to try to, against on the road at KC Stadium against Nebraska. So it's like, how good is UC? We'll find out tomorrow because they got, Satterfield's their coach. The guy used to be at App State. And he had a rough couple of years, but this year they're looking decent and they're scoring some points. I think there was 1,200 yards of offense in their last game. It was them and K-State. They're up down the field, both teams. Kansas. And they won. They beat Kansas at Kansas. So Iowa State's undefeated. I think Iowa State should win the game. I think they're rock solid. Campbell's been there a long time. They got a great program, but if UC gets them, then UC all of a sudden is definitely in play in the Big 12 without a doubt.
Yeah, they have, and you have, you got Boise State coming to Notre Dame.
Right.
Boise State's one of those teams you just can't sleep on. Troy, Appalachian State, Boise State. When they come up against the big boys, they really tend to show up. So but I mean I don't see Notre Dame having an issue there, but I mean it's at home and they should be okay. But man, you just never don't ever count Boise State out because as soon as you do, they'll jump up and bite you.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine Notre Dame. They've already lost twice. It's hard to imagine them. It's hard to imagine them losing this game. At the same time, can they really run the table again like they did last year after one loss? I'm not saying they can't. They can't. They don't have their schedule is kind of set up to a certain degree. They do got to play USC, but USC, the scores points, you just can't stop anybody. So, I think the quarterback play is a little bit better this year than Riley, and that's a little bit more of a. Riley was good, but this guy's just better. I'm not saying Riley wasn't great or anything. It's just a Riley. I think the guy's a little bit better than Riley was. A little more complimentary football with the team. So, and their two losses were tough. I mean, really good teams they played. They just, it was Miami, and then who was the other team that they lost the first two of the year? Florida, Notre Dame. Oh boy, mine's a blank. I got it right here. It was they did lose to Texas A&M. That's right, at home, 41-40. That was a great game and tough loss, but yeah, they got Boise, then NC State, then USC, Boston College, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse. Yeah. So winnable games. There's no doubt. So whether or not they can make the rule of thumb with them is not being in a conference. 2 losses is like 3 losses in a conference. I don't know. If they run the table and the 2 losses are to the only 2 ranked teams they played, considering USC probably won't be ranked when they play, but who knows?
Right. You know, and a lot of people are high on Texas Tech too. You know,
Yep.
they have Houston, undefeated Houston. This week.
Yep.
You know, I don't know. I don't know enough about either one of those teams to say a whole lot about it or to make a pick.
I know I picked Texas Tech to lose last week, and I was wrong. I do remember that. You know, the thing about Texas Tech, it seems like all of a sudden some guy from Oracle just put a bunch of money into that team. They got a bunch of dudes, paid a bunch of players. Now all of a sudden they're splitting of like, okay, can you build a team and make them championship worthy in the same season? You know, Kurt Signetti kind of did. I don't know. I don't know. Texas Tech can get there. They're just not getting there this year or not. I don't know. But the Big 12 is a perfect league to do it in because it's kind of wide open. So we'll see. But that's kind of what Texas Tech has been there. And, you know, they've been who they've always been. Then all of a sudden, Oracle, the guy from Oracle, he's a $1 billion dude, and he's I guess an alumni of Texas Tech, and he's like, hey, here's a bunch of money, and next thing you know, they're relevant now with players, you know, on paper. So we'll see if they can put it, you know, on the field
You know,
on the field.
you know, my opinion. You take the Texas Techs of the world and the Indianas and all that kind of stuff, and I think it's great that that they're coming on, they're doing well, they're very competitive. But you know, when it comes down to the nitty gritty, and you're looking at the elite of each division. Um, well, of course, I don't know about I don't know about the Big 12, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen there with the way that they're realigned and all that kind of stuff. But go Indiana and stuff. I just don't see those teams. I mean, it's great that they can make a run and do well, play well, and make a name for themselves. But I just don't see those kind of teams getting past Ohio State. I mean, I just don't. And they haven't. Same thing. They make it close for a while, but in the end, it's always the same. But I don't put them up there with Oregon or Ohio State, possibly Penn State. I lost a little faith in Penn State after last week, but I guess what I'm saying is, the top teams in the cream is going to rise to the top.
No, I don't disagree. If there's a team that could crack at least for 1 year, into it, and it's this year, I would pick Indiana because what they did last year they shocked the world, got to the CFP, and got beat by Notre Dame. I think they won. They won an earlier game because they didn't have a bye, and then they played Notre Dame and they lost. I think that's how it went because I'm pretty sure they didn't. Yeah, because Oregon won, so they did play somebody early. I can't remember who it is though, off the top of my head, unless I'm completely dead. Or maybe they played. No, I'm sorry. They played Notre Dame first because Notre Dame didn't get a bye. So this is the year that they should be like, okay, we got to step it up. And what does that mean? That means they got to win a big game. And the big game is an Ohio State or a Michigan or an Oregon. They play Oregon this year for sure. I'm not sure about Michigan, but they don't play Ohio State this year. So they go out to Oregon next week. They got to win that game. If they win that game and it looks really good, it's not like a fluke or whatever, then all of a sudden you got to start talking about Indiana. As long as they don't have a rebound headache the next week and drop one to a loser, now all of a sudden how relevant are they? Because they have made the jump that Penn State can't do. They've become the new Penn State, but they've made the jump.
I would be absolutely shocked.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's going to happen. And I don't think I'd pick it, but that's the team. I think if there's anybody that's going to do something like that, looking at the landscape, I think they're in the best position to do it as far as how they're playing. They're playing better football than Penn State in the Big Ten. There's no doubt. And
you were building it up like you were going to pick them.
No. We'll pick that game next week. We'll see what happens. It's tough. It's tough to go out there and win. There's no doubt. Odds in place. It only holds like 60,000. That's about one of the loudest places in the world. It's a good environment. It's good for the Big Ten. It's good for college football. And IU is, I like Kirk Cignetti, man. One of the things you always hear when these guys get fired is, well, if you're going to fire him, who you going to get? Who you going to get? Well, Kirk Cignetti you could have got. He's been around for a long time. There's dudes out there that can coach. So they can't give me this who you going to get stuff. There's plenty of guys that like Kirk Cignetti at our lower schools that are killing it, that all you need to do is pull them up and they'll do something. Who knows what they'll do, but they'll do something. When they brought Tressel to Ohio State, it's like, oh, D2 guy, he can't do nothing. Well, he won 4 in a row at D2, and it's not like he's bringing his players with him. He's getting Big Ten players, and second year he won it all. And went to the next one and lost, and went to another one and lost, but they got to him. He's a winning coach, so it's like Curt Cignetti. He looks the part. They made a nice season out of it. Let's see if they can up their game. If they don't, then they're just another Penn State this year. If they can't beat the big guys, then they're right there at Penn State where they can get all the way and then fall short.
Yeah, I agree with you on the whole coaching thing. The one thing that I will say about that is, those guys then certainly coaching definitely makes a difference. We've seen it, several times. The problem is now is a guy like that comes up to a Florida, LSU, Alabama, wherever, and then all of a sudden he's got so much more stuff to deal with.
Oh yeah.
When you're at Indiana, I think there's a limit of how many 5-star guys are going to want to come there and how much money you're going to have to give them.
Right.
Whenever you step up, to the true top teams that I would actually list as a true top 10, and maybe someday we'll actually get into that. That's a whole different world nowadays with the way that it's changed. Now, I think in the past, I think you're absolutely right. I think one of those guys could, if a guy won, he usually won at all levels, wherever he went. He kind of brought that with him, his work ethic, his plan, whatever. But the game has changed so much now with money, re-recruiting, all of that stuff, that it's tough for a guy to come to one of the top programs and perform at the absolute highest level.
Oh yeah, the top programs for sure. There's no doubt. Nobody even. I didn't even know Curt Cignetti was. I didn't know Indiana made a coaching change until a couple games into the season when they were beating the pants off people and they're talking about, oh, hey, Allen's gone. Oh wow, they got rid of him. Who's this guy, Curt Cignetti? Oh wow, I never heard of the dude. So he went to a perfect situation. There was no expectations other than do better than the last guy, and he goes and puts himself out there, and he has a heck of a season. Now this year, he's not surprising anybody, but he's kind of the team looks a little bit better than last year. Much better quarterback. No offense to Rourke from last year, but this dude, guy from Cal he's slinging at Mendoza. So who knows? We'll see. The big games are coming, and we'll see what they can do. But you're right. If a big program is looking for somebody in this day and age, like you're saying, the money, the 5 stars, and what you got to have, you basically got to be bringing a staff with you. You got to have your offensive and defensive guys set with a staff to run it. If you're going to stand there and try to call the plays on either side, you're going to have a lot of problems because, like you said, it's just too big right now. The big programs need a lot more than just somebody's up there with X's and O's, as the head man.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, unfortunately, but
yeah, we'll have to get to it here and watch all the games tomorrow and see what picks happen. We'll text back and forth. And
so let's see here. We split on what was the game we picked a little bit? Was Florida? It was Florida and Florida State and Miami. You're taking Miami. I'm taking Florida State, so we know that one's a little bit. Texas. And then Florida and Texas. You're taking Texas. I'm taking Florida. Sounds good. Next week, we'll definitely be talking about Oklahoma a little bit and see how long it's going to take that quarterback to get back and if that's going to hurt them in the SEC. I don't know if I'm sold on OU. Did I say Florida? I meant OU, Oklahoma. I'm not sold on Oklahoma being back and relevant in the SEC yet. Nice team this year. They've had a nice win against Michigan. They're looking good. Their quarterback's out. They had a few. But I don't know if they're – the SEC, you got to show me a lot more before I can say you are back and in the conversation in the SEC. There's a lot of other teams. If I had to pick a team right now in the SEC, I'd probably pick Georgia, and it's because of Kirby Smart. And I'm not saying they're playing the best on. I'm just saying, like you've always talked about, they're pretty much be in every game. And Kirby Smart, if something's not going right, they change it at halftime. And last week's game. Not a whole lot of scoring in that second half for Alabama, but they were able to hold off and win the game, in the second half because Kirby Smart's adjustments was enough to slow him down, but wasn't enough to give him the win.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Absolutely.
All righty. Well, folks, that's it for this week. It's the Dubby sponsored College Football Corner. Get your Dubby. It's a W.GG FE network for 10% off. If you do that, let us know what you think. I would highly recommend getting Beach and Peach. That's a really good one. They're all good, though. Trust me. I'm not lying. This stuff was, dog, you know what? And then I would tell you, and it's not. So they're not, anyways. So on Facebook, give us a like. On YouTube, subscribe, hit the bells so you get all notifications of what we're doing here at the Fletcher Entertainment Network, especially College Football Corner. So until next week, Randy, you want to say anything?
Nope. We'll just watch the games tomorrow. Everybody have a good weekend and get right at it. It's going to be friggin' 88 degrees. That's not supposed to be that way in October, but here we are.
Yeah, there you go. Enjoy the games and look for us next week. Have a good weekend.